and I was a college professor, I was an arrogant son of a gun, to put it mildly. If you want a tough crowd to evangelize, go try and evangelize on the college campus. But I had believed that man was the measure of all things. And brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you that if you don't believe in God, that doesn't mean you don't have a God. You've got a God. And your God is you. You think you're God. And you got the puniest, most worthless God there is.
Wow.
Yourself, brother. And it's about time you got straightened out. There is.
So, this man was a college professor. He was where you, Aron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, Telltale, Amazing Atheist, Harmonic Atheist. He was where you are now. He was a deconverted Christian too. When he was a teenager, he believed in God and Jesus, but he had a falling out with God and Jesus and became atheist. He had a near-death experience, saw the error of his ways, and he got gloriously saved. He came back to Jesus. But he describes, no wonder you atheists are so angry and bitter. There's an inner struggle going on inside you. You want God, but since you don't believe in God, you make yourselves God. Your dreams, your ambitions, your science, your family, your friends. You're getting drunk. You're having sex.
What you used to be was someone that would have tuned into a program like this and said, okay, everyone in the audience, that's all, made up. These stories are made up. You're trying to get ratings. Is that how you would have perceived it, or would you have just said everyone on that set and everyone in that studio are crazy? How would you have perceived this program?
I know that there is an interest in God in everyone, even if they say they don't believe in God.
Even with you?
Yeah.
Before the event?
And there's a battle going on, raging on inside of them. But I want to say something that in response to this. Remember, don't believe you, don't believe Don, don't believe me, don't believe TBN, don't believe the church. Go to the source. If you go to the source, if you say, Jesus, I need you. I've never believed in you, and I don't know if you're real, but Jesus, I need to know if you're real. Will you come into my life? If you do that, and if you mean it from your heart, and if you sit there and wait, and don't get all frustrated and get impatient and stuff like that, but just say, Jesus, Jesus, please come into my life. I've been a rotten person. And I don't know why you'd touch a piece of filth like me, but please, Jesus, come into my life, which is what I did. He will come. Yes. It may not be.
Why didn't you do that before your experience?
I didn't know. I wish some idiot like me or you or Don had come and said, you know what? All this philosophical speculation that you're doing all the time between existentialism and all this stuff, why don't you just ask him if he's real?
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely.
What this man says is so beautiful, but then I recall, many of you have asked God, God, are you real? And crickets. So I'm asking Jesus, Lord Jesus Christ, are you really real? Or are you the greatest hoax? Is you and Christianity the greatest and cruelest hoax perpetrated upon the human race, with the threat of eternal punishment? It's a crapshoot. It's a roll of the dice. Jesus, are you real?
And so I was a gullible kid in the 70s, and I just bought this. And eventually I realized that experience that I had if true, would create a huge series of paradoxes to the point that it couldn't be true, and that the only reasonable experience was that both I and the other person that was sharing that experience with me must both have hallucinated this, because it can't have really happened. And so eventually, through the power of the internet, I connected with that person again. It was somebody that I hadn't talked to in decades. But, you know, there's all kinds of ways that you can connect with people that you knew back in high school and so forth. And I met this person and somebody else that was involved in another one of my spiritual adventures. And surprisingly, both of them, although they were heavy into like druidic magic or transcendental meditation or whatever back at that time, now when I get in touch with them again, both of them are just in the same position that I am. They're hardcore rationalists. They don't believe anything on faith. They don't believe in any kind of supernatural or psionic anything. And when I talk about these experiences, which I remember them experiencing with me, neither of them remember those events at all.
Wow.
So I'm completely in the dark. I'm like, I remember vividly an experience we shared that was dramatic and explosive, and that went on for hours, and there were no drugs involved, because I've never been into drugs. And so I just have no explanation other than when you psych yourself up for something, when you get involved in the ambiance and you really want to believe, you really can manufacture that illusion. And I found that I was doing that as a neo-pagan occultist practitioner. I was doing that for other people. In the early 80s, it was a great way to pick up chicks. Honestly, I mean, it was a great way to get somebody involved in something what they would be, interested in. And I found that I could convince anybody to see or hear or experience anything they already believed, if they already believed it. You're never going to convince a Christian to see Krishna, or a Krishna to see, or a Hindu to see Jesus. It's not going to work that way. But if they already believe it, you can work on that. And if they want to believe it, you can make them experience, audibly, visually, however you like, anything they already into, because they want it that bad. And when you build up the music, the drums, the incense, whatever is involved in the ambiance of that, you can manufacture all these illusions. And when I realized that I was actually manufacturing illusions for people rather than getting them to really experience something that was real, it occurred to me how dishonest that was. But then an instant later, you realized it had a mirror effect, that I was actually doing that to myself. I had demonstrations that I could give people to show them the truth of the psychic energy in the palms of your hands, for example. And when I realized that I was actually manufacturing an illusion in my own mind and then presenting it to other people as if it was real. And it all collapsed. And
So Howard Storm, Aron Ra's got a really good point. How in the hell do you know when God answers you? It's the real God, and the Jesus who answers you is the real Jesus, or just some mind drug?
And so when anybody else tells me about their religious experience, I mean, like when I read about George Harrison, for example, who he chants the mantras to Krishna, repeatedly until he says he can see Krishna actually appear in the room. He can see him, he can hear him, he can talk to him, he can laugh at him. It's just like there's a real person really there. And John Lennon was buying into the same thing too. They're both professing the same thing. You tell that to any Christian, and the Christian won't have a visual apparition of Jesus to talk to. But even though they have this tiny little imperceptible thing they're imagining in the back of their head, and they're calling that talking to Jesus, they automatically discard George Harrison and John Lennon and all of the other Hindus, the Bhakti Hindus, for having this more direct, more vivid experience of their God. I also met a pagan, somebody I've known for decades, who adopted a belief in Bast, the Egyptian cat-headed goddess, because she manifested herself in his house, where he could see her. And she gives him a hug and begs that he become her disciple, which of course he did, because when does Jesus ever physically show up and shake your hand and say, "Hi, I'm Jesus"? And so I listened to all these other religions, and probably the best one was when in 1981 I read this thing from Thailand where this girl was talking about how she had this huge elation, this huge overwhelming experience. It was exactly like my rebirth experience, where she said that she had this dizzying euphoria, where she's like light on her feet, and for hours everything is fantastic, and all of her troubles just melted away the moment she accepted Buddha into her life. And it was almost verbatim what I had heard people describe about Jesus. So I realized there's not any innate truth to any one belief over any other. In fact, all these other beliefs have psychic energies and faith healing practices and a whole bunch of other evidences that they'll claim that is way beyond what Christians will claim.